Welcome to Season 2 of Around and Around the OCD Circle podcast. My name is Elizabeth, and I have been living with obsessive-compulsive disorder for over 60 years. I am not a therapist or a medical professional. Each week, I will document my struggles and successes while having OCD. I will also speak with ordinary people, just like yourself, from around the globe, who have graciously agreed to share their OCD stories with you. I feel certain you will relate to some or all of their experiences. If at any time you feel like hurting yourself or ending your life, please call the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 if you are in the United States. It is open 24 hours a day, and you will be connected with the nearest crisis center to receive immediate counseling and local mental health referrals. Now, on to today's episode. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Around and Around the OCD Circle podcast. I'm glad that you've joined me today. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I've been having trouble getting interviews with people recently. I've had a couple of people who have decided they weren't ready yet to tell their story, so I do have some openings. If you're interested in coming on, it is audio only. You'd like to share your OCD story with others, it will help you and it will also help other people. Please message me at one of my social media links below. I'd love to meet you and hear your story. So I thought today I would catch you up on where I am as far as my OCD journey. I have always said that OCD is not curable, but it can be managed, and I'm living proof of that. That's my tagline. But after you hear some of the obsessions that I've been having lately, you may say, Elizabeth, you're not even managing your OCD well. And my answer to that would be, I am. You should have seen my brain 20 years ago, 30 years ago. This is absolutely nothing. Last night, I did not go to sleep until at least 3 a.m. because my head was full of all kinds of thoughts. And I'm not going to tell you these to make you feel sorry for me, say, oh, poor pitiful me. I'm going to be telling you these things because I want to know if there are other people like myself out there who have all of these intrusive thoughts. And what do you do with them? And as I tell you each one of these thoughts I had last night, I may mention some things that I do to counteract those thoughts so that I didn't think about them all day today. On July 5th, Hurricane Beryl gave us a direct hit in Houston. And as I talked about in a previous episode, we had a derecho windstorm on May 17th here in Houston. And it was really, really bad. The hurricane, Category 1, was nothing like the derecho. After the derecho hit, anytime we were expecting thunderstorms, flooding, anything like that, I believe I was experiencing a little bit of PTSD, and I would get anxious. My dog would get anxious, and it just wasn't good. So we went through the hurricane. We installed a Generac after the derecho, so we did have power from a generator. However, we didn't have internet and cell phone service. It was very difficult to work on a hotspot. It was very stressful. It wasn't as stressful as not having power at all, but I have been obsessing about that. And also in Houston, this has been like 2 weeks now after the hurricane, there are still people in the Houston area who have no power. So what I've been obsessing about is these people without power. People who are elderly, people who are sick, animals that have no air conditioning in the 100-degree weather. I've been worried and worried and worried. We had several water rescues during the hurricane, and I made the mistake of watching one on TV. It made national news. You may have seen it, with a man who was on top of his truck. There was water all around him, rushing by, and any moment that truck could go underwater and the man could have lost his life. The firefighters were able to rescue him. It was all caught live on TV. I should have turned it off, but I didn't. I didn't protect my brain, and I sat there and watched the entire rescue. I was petrified for him. And I thought about that man, and I also thought about men and women who didn't make it during the storm. We had several deaths attributed to the storm. Also, I've been obsessing about my parents, and I do this a lot. I told you before I used to play a game at night with my dad, Words with Friends, and if I did not play my turn by midnight, then I felt like I was responsible for his safety, that he would get sick or he would die overnight. Well, we have since stopped playing Words with Friends, so that hasn't been an issue. But now, whenever I call my parents, if they don't answer, I obsess about it. I automatically think they're dead. Someone came into their house and murdered them. They had a carbon monoxide leak and they died of carbon monoxide poisoning. I mentioned this out loud to my wife. She just kind of rolls her eyes, but to me, it's very, very serious. And as my parents have aged, I find that my mother is not cooking as often, so they go out to eat a lot. And usually that's where they are, or maybe they're out on the front porch, or maybe they're just going for a walk. I give them 30 minutes, I call again. If they don't answer, I get even more panicked. And this just goes around and around in my head, which is why I call this podcast Around and Around the OCD Circle. I want to know if any of you have, I think you have because I've seen this on the boards. I obsess about conversations that I have had with people. I obsess about emails I've written, text I've written, Facebook messages I've written, things that I cannot erase. Facebook Messenger is good because you can remove the message, but you can't really remove text messages. At least you can on my phone. And I even remember conversations that I had 40 years ago that I obsessed about. I just can't get rid of them. And even the letter to my current obsession, when I wrote to her a few years ago, I kept it in my computer because I wanted to read it over and over again. And then when I switched computers, I downloaded it onto my external hard drive, and then my external hard drive went out, and so I no longer have access to that letter, but I try to replay the letter in my head because I've read it so many times. Why do I obsess about it? I don't know. I don't even know if she received it. I obsess about that. If she did read it, what did she think of it? Did she agree with it? Did it help her in any way understand my obsession? Is this the reason why she is cordial and polite to me when I see her online? I don't know. Yesterday, we had a family Zoom call. There was someone in there who was outside of the family who attended, and I was really shocked that she was there, and my microphone was not muted, and I turned to my wife and I said, I can't believe she's here. I didn't say it very loud, but I'm sure my mic picked it up, and it felt terrible afterwards. So all during this Zoom meeting, I'm saying hi to her, and she's not saying hi back. So I'm assuming that she heard that. It's not something I would normally say. It was out of character for me, and I have been playing that Zoom meeting back over and over again. Also, I was called out on social media on a YouTube channel because I used the term just saying. We were asked for opinions. We were asked to give our opinions and comments below in the video. I gave my opinion and I said just saying, and I was told that I was rude by using that phrase. I obsessed about that all day long. I did see that some people commented on the YouTuber's comment to mine saying I wasn't rude, that is a very common saying, but obsessed about that. A lot of celebrities have passed in the last week or so. A couple of them are Shannon Doherty, who's an actress, Richard Simmons, who I absolutely adored, One of the YouTubers that I follow was found dead in her bed after 4 days. And Bob Newhart, who was an awesome comedian. That's 4 in 1 week. There were some others. I think Dave Loggins also from Loggins of Messina. So this even enforces the obsessions that I have about people close to me dying. I lay in bed at night. I'm afraid that when I wake up in the morning, my wife will have died, my dog will have died, my friend will have died, who lives far away from me and lives alone. I obsess about my parents having died, and that's inevitable, okay? But I did an episode a while back about how I'm not afraid of death. I'm not so much afraid of myself dying. I'm afraid of having to live here without others that I love and not being able to get myself through it. Also, during the last week, President Donald J. Trump was shot at a rally. There was a major tech failure all over the world. And so this gets me obsessed about terrorists, natural disasters, things like that that are totally out of my control. But all those things do is feed these obsessions. And so what I need to do is stay off social media, stay off the news channels. Like I said, I should never have watched that water rescue. At night, after I record episodes or work on my business around 11 p.m., which we still have about 45 minutes before 11. That's when I stop, quote, working, and I play my game, and I listen to podcasts. And I could play my game for 30 minutes, an hour, 3 hours. I have to play my game until it feels right. Does that ever happen to you? And I can't really explain to you how I know when it feels right. I will say to myself, I'm going to win one more game of solitaire. The next time I win a game of solitaire, I'm done. All right. I win a game of solitaire, and then I say to myself, okay, I need to win one more game of solitaire before I go to sleep. It doesn't feel right. I play a Mahjong game at midnight. It switches over to the next day, and you have like 3 different goals that you're supposed to accomplish during the day. So I wait till midnight. I start playing this Mahjong game, and I'll say, okay, I'm only going to play this until I get my 3 goals met. And it lights up on the screen. Yay, you've achieved these goals. I do that. By then it's 12:10, 12:15 a.m. And then my brain says, no, you can't stop. It doesn't feel right. So I could lay in bed another hour playing Mahjong until it feels right. And I cannot explain to anyone when it feels right. Another thing I've always worried about my whole life is being homeless. Now, I'm in the best position now financially, I believe, where I don't think that's going to be a possibility. But a long time ago, I was in such bad shape financially that homelessness was a real possibility in the future. And so now I start watching videos on YouTube about people living in their cars, people living in their vans, people living in their SUVs. They actually make homes in these vehicles. It's incredible. And I found several people who I really, really feel a connection to. And it's almost like I'm saying to myself, Elizabeth, if you do become homeless, it's okay because you do have an alternative. There are a lot of people who live like this. They get to travel, they get to see all of the United States. They're comfortable. Some of them even have pets. They have meetups. They have great YouTube channels, YouTube communities. but I don't think that would ever be a life for me. I like to stay in one place. I like to be home. I like to travel, but I would not want to be traveling constantly. I would be scared that my vehicle would break down. I would be scared that someone would try to break in during the middle of the night. I'm not good at building things. I wouldn't feel confident working with butane and all that kind of thing. So that's not something that I would ever do. But I find myself obsessed with these channels, and the more videos I watch, the more videos are suggested to me, and then the more YouTubers I end up subscribing to. It's like an endless circle. This past month, I have been obsessed with having a mouse in the house. We don't have mice. We have rats outside in our backyard, which we are taking care of, but we don't have mice in our house. But one night I was feeding my dog. I cook for my dogs. I cook chicken, rice, green beans, vegetables, things like that. That specific night, he had green beans in his bowl. And after dinner, when I was walking by his bowl, I saw what to me looked like a mouse dropping. I know what mouse droppings look like. And I took the bowl over to my wife, and because she's like, there's no way we have a mouse. There's no way we have a mouse. And I'm like, well, this looks like a mouse dropping. And I took it over, and she goes, sure enough, that does look like a mouse dropping. She goes, but Beth, we don't have mice in this house. And so for the last month, I've been petrified that there's a mouse in the house. Never saw any other, quote, droppings around. He had just eaten out of that bowl. I mean, where did the mouse dropping come from? I think it was a seed from one of the green beans that was just a little bit darker than a normal seed. That's all I could think of. That's what I keep telling myself. But again, my OCD brain keeps saying, no, Beth, there's a mouse in the house. And so I'm tiptoeing around. I'm looking around corners. I keep my feet off the floor at all times when I'm sitting anywhere. And that has created a little bit of problem for me. I need to take better care of myself mentally. A lot of these intrusive thoughts could have been avoided if I would just stay off of social media and not watch TV news programs. Another reason I think I'm having these thoughts at night is I have not been listening to my hypnosis YouTube playlist. For some reason, I just got tired of them. I haven't been putting them on at night. And so I'm just laying there in the silence, and that's giving my brain permission to think of other things. So tonight, I'm going to make a pact with myself that starting tonight, every night, I'm going to start listening to my YouTube playlist again. I have one called Sleep and one called Sleep OCD. And I'm going to listen to them every night so that I don't have any space to think of anything else. So I just wanted to tell you that even though I say in my tagline, I'm managing my OCD, sometimes, especially under great times of stress, which we have had a lot of due to all the weather here, due to our dog being very, very ill. The stress is very, very bad right now in our home. And I believe that's what's causing all of these obsessions and me staying up until 3 in the morning. And then what do? It's the weekend, so I take naps. I had a 3-hour nap today. The chances of me falling asleep at a decent hour tonight is pretty much nil. I've slept almost, 3 hours is a long nap. Yesterday, same thing. I took a 3-hour nap. So it feeds into each other. And I'm hoping I can pull out of this. I'm hoping that I will have an interview for you next week Don't forget that on Thursdays I upload a midweek motivation for you, something to get you going, something to brighten your week and get you through the rest of your week. And again, I'm so glad that you joined me. Don't forget that we do have a Facebook group for this podcast. We are a very, very small group, but we'd like to grow. And there you will find people who understand, who will listen. We're not there to analyze you. We're not there to solve your problems, but we are there to listen. So I hope you will consider joining. And until next time, please have a wonderful week, and I'll see you on my next episode of Around and Around the OCD Circle podcast. Bye now.